Are you using Databricks and at the same time VS Code is your favorite IDE that you develop and test your codes locally? If yes, then you might have this question from yourself that maybe there's a potential extension that you can install in VS Code to be able to develop your codes locally but execute them remotely on Databricks cluster, let's say as a Databricks notebook or even Databricks job, without even opening Databricks. If you're looking for an answer, then this is the right video for you, and let's go. Hello everyone, this is MG and welcome back to another video which we're going to talk about a new extension added to VS Code called Databricks. That means, as you can guess, as of now you can execute your codes that you have developed using VS Code on your local machine, but having them running over a cluster in Databricks as a Databricks notebook or job. This has been a very highly demanded feature, and that will certainly boost up your flexibility of having your modularized codes on your local machine, on your favorite IDE, but at the same time leveraging the great capabilities of compute that we have available as of now over Databricks. Then, let's check it out. Before we start, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you will get notified for the next video. Alright, now this is the time to talk about the new extension added to Visual Studio Code or VS Code, which is called Databricks. Now, with installing Databricks extension in VS Code, what we're gonna achieve, or what are the main benefits that we can highlight here? So look at these 3 bullet points that I try to highlight the keywords in a yellow color. So first of all, with having this extension or Databricks extension installed on VS Code, you can start synchronize the codes that you develop locally within VS Code to get them synced in Databricks workspace. That means what I'm going to show you, you will see that I have a .py code developed on my local machine using VS Code, but you will see that any change that I make will be appeared in my Databricks code as well when I open my Databricks portal. So from my local machine, any code I develop will be synced and showcased in Databricks real time. But be cautious, this is not a bidirectional synchronization. That means if you change a code in Databricks, that code won't change in your local machine. But if you change the code in local machine, it will automatically get updated and change in Databricks because this is the direction that is synchronized. Now, what is the second benefit highlighted here? You can now run your local Python codes or .py codes that you have in VS Code on Databricks cluster remotely. So that means you have the code developed in your machine, but it won't run on your laptop. It will be running on a remote Databricks cluster that you have specified, which we're going to give it a try in this video as well. And last but not least, not just .py codes, even Python notebooks or Scala SQL notebooks, you can have them executed remotely on a Databricks cluster as an automated Databricks job. That means not only just a notebook, just single time, but also you can have them as a job executed in Databricks without you being in Databricks. You can still be in your VS Code and develop your codes and notebooks locally using IDE that you have, which is VS Code here. Alright, now what I'm going to show you, let's see how we can install this extension, and we will have a quick Python code that we'll develop it locally, and we'll see what are the requirements needed to have this code executed remotely on a Databricks cluster, and even how we can have .py code or notebook or even as a job. Okay, let's get into my Visual Studio Code. Alright, here's my VS Code. I opened a new page, and what I'm gonna do first, you need to make sure that you have this new Databricks extension installed in your VS Code. If you don't know how to do so, just simply go ahead and click on extension and just type Databricks for Visual Studio Code. This is the one that you need to install, so type it on the search bar here and this will get appeared, and you click on install like this one. Mine doesn't have it because I already installed it, and after clicking on install, what's gonna happen, you will see Databricks icon added here. That means I have the extension already installed. So I click on that. It tells me that open a folder for starting Databricks VS Code. I already created a folder on my local machine on downloads folder because I want to delete this after recording this tutorial, but yours is going to be a project folder that you have locally on your machine that you have VS Code for developing your codes there. I'm going to open that folder that I have already created, which is under my download dbr2, select folder. So it's opening the folder that I specified here. There you go. Yes, I trust the author. Alright, so now I am under this. As you can see, I have no code developed yet. So here I have my dbr2, which is a folder that I just created, and I'm going to put a .py code inside this folder. This is a very sample .py code that created a data frame, and I got it actually from the documentation. So let me quickly paste that code under this folder, and you will see what is that code. There you go. Here's the file that I have again developed locally, but now what I'm gonna do, I want to execute it remotely on a Databricks cluster. So I have the code here, and as you can see, it's just simply creating a data frame using PySpark, assuming that you have pip install PySpark already in your environment, right? So what it's gonna do, just creating a Spark session for me, and here's I'm defining a schema for the data frame that I have. I'm creating and some sample data set, right? That's it. This is again coming from Databricks documentation. I just wanted to use it as an example to show you how you can have your code locally developed but execute on Databricks. Okay, so what is next? Now, if you click on Databricks as I did, you'll see that it is asking you to start configuring the Databricks, because we haven't told again yet what is the Databricks workspace that I'm going to actually execute this file remotely. So I click on configure Databricks. The first thing it's going to ask me that what is your Databricks host? Because I already added my Databricks host multiple times, so it knows already, and it already listed the URL of my Databricks. So your host, Databricks host, gonna start with HTTPS, and then ADB, a sort of a string of a number, and then if you're using Azure Databricks, you will have the Azure Databricks.net /o equal to the rest of the code, sorry, the URL string that you have there. So you can copy and paste it from Databricks portal. When you open Databricks portal over your browser, just copy and paste your Databricks host, and you will see something similar to mine. So I click on it, and then after entering your host, it's gonna ask you that what is the profile that you're going to authenticate, or how you're going to authenticate to Databricks. Are you going to, let's say, use Azure CLI, or you might have a profile already created? I already created a profile. I call it MG, as you can see here. And how I created this profile, you just need to put the host and a token. So I assume you already know how to create a Databricks token. I will show you quickly, but I already created this profile, so I can just select MG and that's it. But because you don't have it, let me show you first how I created. So if I click on edit Databricks profiles, you'll see that these are the profiles I created, and they have a name, a host, the same thing that I copy and pasted there, a token, and jobs API version, which is equal to 24 now. So you need to just change the name. Here mine is MG, and then the host, and then token. How you get the token? Very simple. Here's my Databricks portal. Just click on user setting here and generate a new token. That's it. It will give you a new token. You come back to VS Code and paste that value there, and that's it. So I have it already configured for me. So again, I click on configure Databricks. Again, you paste your host. I did it already. That's here. And then it will ask you, give me the profile. Because now you have created your profile with the name you specified, you click on it. So mine is MG. And that's it. It says connected to Databricks, and there you go. You will see that it connected my workspace. It knows what is my username, the host, we copy and paste it there, and cluster. I already created a cluster in Databricks. Let me show you that. I think it should be running now. There you go, system administrator. Okay, so let's say I want to connect to this and execute my code over this cluster. So what I'm going to do in VS Code, here it says no cluster attached. That's fine, we're going to attach one. So I click on this icon here, and you will see that it automatically show me the cluster that I have there. If you don't have any cluster, you can create a new one from here as well. So I have it. I already click on the second one, and there you go. It knows the name of my cluster, status running. I'm good. Now what you need for this extension, you need to create a repo in Databricks and sync that repo to your local machine. So you can do it from here as well. What is repo? This is what I'm talking about, Databricks repo. So for example, I have multiple repos. Some of them are integrated with, let's say, my GitHub, my Azure DevOps. But the one that I created before this video to test, which is called IDE, that's a repo synced to my local machine. And this is a type of a repo you need to create. Do you need to create from here? No, really. What you can do just in VS Code, this is sort of the place you need to be. Click on this icon, create a new sync destination. This is what it's gonna do. It will create a new repo for me. So I'm gonna say create a new one, dbr2. Let's choose the name, hit enter. There you go. Now I have already created a repo called dbr2 that is synced with my local machine. Let's check out if it's created in Databricks or not. So let me refresh the URL. Hopefully you'll see the new repo created without coming into Databricks. So let me click on repo. There you go, dbr2, and the type of that is IDE. That means, okay, this one is connected to VS Code and local machine stuff. All right, so now it seems like I have everything ready to execute my local code to Databricks, because I have connected to my Databricks using a profile with the token and stuff that I showed you. Then I have created a cluster, so I attached that cluster in VS Code, and then I have created a repo that is synced to my local machine so I can execute my jobs remotely. Again, you don't need to create repo all the time. When you have your repo created, just have your repository there and push any local codes under that folder. It will be synced to Databricks workspace. So let's check out what is inside this repo, dbr2. It's nothing there, but we're gonna add our local files here, but not without coming to Databricks. So let me go back to VS Code. Now remember, we created a folder in my local machine. And I created a test.py under that folder. Now let's start running it remotely on Databricks. So how are we gonna do this? First, I need to go to that folder. There you go, I'm already here, dbr2. It's under my downloads folder, but yours can be anywhere, just a test here. And this is the file that actually I'm gonna run it remotely over Databricks cluster. So this is a .py code, but there is a way that I can convert this to a notebook when I run it remotely on a Databricks. How? Here's the secret. You just add Databricks notebook source as a command at the beginning, then Databricks will automatically understand it should be run as a notebook. And then if you want to have separate cells of your code, just use command and these dashes. That means you're separating this part as a one cell and this one as another cell when it goes to a Databricks notebook. So let's keep it simple as just .py code, and then when we want to run it as a job, then we can convert it to a notebook. So what I'm gonna do, I want to remove these parts but keep it in a notepad so we can paste it again. Okay, let me cut that as well, and there you go. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna save this, make sure it's already saved, Control S. And then how I run it over the Databricks that I'm connected to, just right click on this file. There you go. Now you can run this file on Databricks or run this as a job or a workflow on Databricks. For now, let's start running as a file on Databricks. So I click on it. It says that screening. Okay. First of all, now the synchronization got started. That means any local code I develop on my machine, now it's synced to Databricks. Now it's running that, and there you go. The outcome of this code, which is data frame, is done. Running on my Databricks, not local machine. Let's check this out. So I want to come to my Databricks. Let's do a quick refresh again. Let me go to repos, dbr2. There you go. You can see that the repository we created now contains my file, and if I open that, this is exactly the test code that we have developed and executed on Databricks cluster, right? So let's try that synchronization, the first benefits. If I make any change here, does it get changed automatically on Databricks workspace without running the code again? Let's try. What I'm gonna do, I would say hashtag test, just changing the code and clicking on save. Okay, I saved this code. Let me go back to Databricks, and what I'm gonna do, I wanna refresh my Databricks workspace, coming back to my repo, VSCode test. There you go. You can see that I didn't come even to Databricks with any single change I made in VS Code. Now it got appeared real time to Databricks. But again, if I change the code here, it won't get appeared in my VS Code, okay? Not bi-directional again. Now, what am I gonna try next? So I wanna run the same code, but this time as a job. And not only as a .py code, I wanna make it running as a job, as a notebook in Databricks, but again, without coming to Databricks. How can I do it? Again, the same thing I told you. Now, this time, I'm gonna convert this .py code to a notebook in Databricks. How? This is the secret. Just copy this Databricks notebook source. This is, by the way, it's the same always. You can use it as a reference. When you add this at the beginning, it will understand it's a notebook. And second, I want to make this code to 2 cells as an example. Let's say I want to create a Spark session in 1 cell, and then the rest gonna be in another cell, right? This is the place I'm separating this cell. So I click on Control S. So I have saved this file now, and what I'm gonna do, instead of saying run file as Databricks, I want to run this as a job. So I click on this one. Okay, let's wait a bit. Gonna take a while. It should retrieve back the run ID, the cluster is running, and some details here, and it starts synchronizing. So let me pause recording, and there you go. Check this beautiful output out. So it created a Databricks job for me, and because of these 2 magical command lines we added, it converted my .py code to a notebook in Databricks. And I can see that there's a run ID over this cluster. Actually, let's click on this run ID, so it should show me the job that got executed remotely. Let's wait for a second. Come on, there you go. Look at that. So from the place that I added that magical command, it separated my code to multiple cells, and the outcome is there as a job. And if I check back the repo that is synced to my local machine dbr2, you will see that that .py file is now changed to a notebook. So let's quickly review what we did actually. So we just simply created the extension, or installed the extension in VS Code. Then we created a folder on our local machine as our project folder. Then we created a repository in Databricks to have it as a synchronization place to our local machine. And I created actually that repository from here, from Databricks. I actually clicked on sync destination and I created that. That's it. And then I attached my cluster using this icon. I clicked on it. I chose my cluster using the host and the profile that I have with workspace through the token. I attached myself to Databricks workspace, and then using this synchronization, I was able to execute both .py code and both executing as a notebook from my local machine to Databricks workspace that I had. So that was just a very simple example to show you the flow, configuration, and what you need to have in place. Plus, again, highlighting what are the benefits you're expecting to have this extension in place. Give it a try. That will hugely increase your flexibility, and people who were complaining about having lack of modularization experience in Databricks and why I just should stick on notebooks, that's not the point anymore, because you just saw that I was able to modularize my code and remotely run .py code over Databricks. Hope you enjoyed this video, and that's it.
What you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become by achieving your goals. Dream big, my friends, believe in yourself and take action.